Welcome to San Diego Oasis and the 8th annual Get Connected Technology Fair for the 50 plus. Thanks to so many of you who took the time to send us notes of gratitude. We are so thrilled to know that our first virtual technology conference is making a meaningful difference to you. Today is our last day. We will be learning about smart home technologies as well as latest innovations for your investments. In between learning, we will take a few minutes to stretch and get to know our sponsors. It is thanks to their generosity that this technology learning event is possible and free of charge. Mr. Bicep, the muscle man of technology, will keep the tradition of closing our day with exciting giveaways. Stay with us. And now it is my distinct pleasure to introduce to you Sam Atisha, Senior Vice President at Cox, California.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Sam Atisha. I'm the Senior Vice President of Cox Communications. Welcome to San Diego Oasis Senior Technology Fair. I'm really happy to be with you today, and we have a great day planned for you and a fabulous guest. But before we get started, I have a special announcement. And I want to just tell you, at Cox Communications, we believe in the power of technology, the power to connect over our network. And we know now more than ever how important technology is. And we want technology to be the way and not get in the way. So all of you being here today is so important to get an opportunity to learn of how technology can help you all age in place better, use technology to continue to connect to all the people and things that you care about most. Cox is committed to that too, and so we want to make sure that all of you have a chance to engage in technology in a way that you're comfortable with, that can help you continue to learn and live in place. And so on that end, I have a really special announcement. So I want to call up Simona and also Gladys to join me in this announcement. So on behalf of Cox Communications and all of our employees, I'd like to make this $300,000 donation to San Diego Oasis to support all the amazing things they do each and every day, such as technology workshops like the class that we're on today, technology demonstrations, a tech help bar on how it can help all of you continue to learn about technology, telehealth care center. And so I'm really excited to be here today to kick this off with some great partners and how we're going to continue to invest in our community. And Simona, I'd love you to say a couple of words.
We are thrilled to be working with Cox Communications. What a gift. What a gift to San Diego seniors. And while we stay virtual, really, any senior, anywhere in the world connected to learning technology. Because this pandemic made it very clear, we must be confident consumers. We must navigate safely all the tools and resources there are for us through technology. So join me in thanking Cox Communications for this fantastic gift today and serve it all of us in the future.
Thank you. We feel really strongly that this will be a transformative gift and an opportunity for us to continue to partner with a great organization about bringing technology accessibility to all. So look for more to come, but I'm really excited to kick this partnership off. And speaking of excitement, I'm really honored to introduce our next guest. We know her by different names here at Cox. She's been a great partner with us for many years. I'd like to introduce a special guest here this morning to share with you how technology can help keep you connected in this challenging time that we find ourselves. Alison Jacobson, AKA the Safety Mom, is a nationally acclaimed speaker, blogger, family safety expert. We've used her for many years at Cox Communications to really get the word out about how important technology is and what technology can do to improve the lives of all of our customers. She's a mother of 4, a stepmom and caregiver for her husband and son. From a personal tragedy of losing her first son to sudden infant death syndrome, Alison has become an advocate for educating others in how everyone can keep their family safe. You'll not only be informed today, but I hope you'll be inspired today by Alison. She is an amazing supporter of Cox, and I'm really excited to have her here today. Please welcome safety mom, Alison Jacobson. Thank you.
Good morning, everybody. Thank you for having me here at Oasis today. My name is Alison Jacobson. I am a national family safety expert, also known as the Safety Mom, and I'm so excited to be with you today to talk about this important topic. So this is my family. On the right is my daughter, Kelsey. She is a freshman in college now. My daughter, Hannah, is on the left. She is a sophomore in high school. That is my husband, Greg. We got married 9 years ago, and 4 weeks after our wedding, he was diagnosed with primary progressive MS. So he went from walking at our wedding to being in a wheelchair full-time pretty quickly. That's my mom, Kathy. She's 83 years old. She lives with us. She moved in after my dad passed away from Alzheimer's 5 years ago, and she's very energetic, but she's 83, so I take care of her as well. And then that is my incredible son, Spencer. He is 22 years old and has intellectual disabilities. My hope is that he will be living on his own at some point, not necessarily on his own, but with a roommate. But he will definitely need both financial support and support services to allow him to do that. So I am a caregiver for 3 generations in my family, and I work full time. So I do have my hands full. So how many people used to watch the Jetsons? It was my favorite cartoon growing up, but I can't believe that every one of the scenarios in there came true. I wish we had one of Astro on the treadmill, because we've seen pictures of dogs on treadmills too. But it's absolutely amazing that all of this has come true. And I find it incredible. I can't imagine for older adults who have seen technology just shift everything light years so quickly. You know, changes used to happen 5 years, 10 years. Now, as you know, a phone is old and the new version's coming out like 6 months, 7 months later. So it truly is amazing what has happened with smart devices. Through the pandemic, especially, I think we've all seen how smart devices and smart services and online services have helped dramatically. When COVID hit, my son goes to an adult program, adult day services program, and I was very nervous about what would happen when he couldn't go, because if you know anything about people with intellectual disabilities or autism, they crave structure and routine. And so I was really nervous how I was going to be able to handle this. Fortunately, they started Zoom calls immediately. They do Zoom karaoke, they do Zoom cooking, they do Zoom bingo. And to hear him on with his friends, connecting, laughing, having fun was so amazing. On the left there, he was painting pictures on bags. They were filling them with food for the essential workers. And that was a project he did on Zoom with his friends, which was great. So I think that's been amazing so far. That is my husband on the left. So prior to MS, he was a pro golfer. And one of the things that I think was the hardest thing for us and for him was being able to stay independent. And we had a very different vision of the future for us when we first got married. We thought we'd be going on vacations together and playing golf and doing all those things. And it's not that we don't go on vacations, but it's very different. I mean, we went to Mexico 2 years ago trying to get on a plane and maneuver with somebody who can't walk, believe me, is not easy. He needs help getting in and out of the bed. Now, before the pandemic, I traveled constantly. So thank goodness for smart devices that could turn on the lights for him when I wasn't there, to turn the thermostat on and off. All of those things are so important to him to maintain that independence so he doesn't feel like he has to constantly rely on me, and to help me, quite frankly. On the left he's in something called the Paramobile. What this is a golf cart that straps him in and takes him out to the hole, lifts him up and allows him to play golf. And so now he is a golf instructor for military vets, for stroke victims, for adult children with disabilities. It's amazing what he's been able to do. And on the right is something really cool. It's called the Myocycle. We're getting one next Friday. I'm so excited. Basically, anybody who is a paraplegic, quadriplegic, MS, stroke victim, they can get maneuvered into this bicycle in their wheelchair, and then there's electrodes that are strapped or attached to their legs. So Greg will bicycle on his own, but only as much as he can, and then the electrodes will send shocks to his nerves to get his legs moving. So he will be able to exercise and hopefully maintain the strength that he currently has, if not get better, because it will send the results of how he's doing and how much he works versus that up to the cloud so he can look at it. So we are so excited about that. And that's my mom. As I said, she is extremely independent, but recently had hip replacement surgery. She lives on the second floor of our house. So I was very worried, kind of getting her down the stairs and things like that. And for a while, she wasn't coming down when she first had the hip replacement surgery. So it made her a little nervous, especially if any of us were out and about and no one was downstairs. So the cameras, she could see the driveway, she could see the front door. So it made her feel better, but it also made me feel better because I could look in on the cameras too and make sure she was okay if I was out at the grocery store or anything. So it made a big difference. There is a whole host of smart devices permeating every part of our life. And according to the AAP, in 2030, 132 million Americans over age 50 will spend $84 billion a year on smart devices. It's amazing. And as you can see, there's everything. There's the smart mirror, which I want to get for exercising. It's kind of like a Peloton, but the instructor can come on the mirror and you can see that. Smart cars that will turn off if you forget to hit the button and turn it off. I love the thing on the lower right is a smart lawnmower. So I have 1.5 acres of grass that in the summer I have to mow every week. And I have my little riding mower. It's like Green Acres. But if I could have a smart lawnmower and I could sit on the deck having a glass of wine while it mowed, I would be totally happy. And then the pet product is for pets with anxiety, which is totally my dog. So it will sense loud noises that could bother your dog, whether it is a thunderstorm or cars or anything, and it will send a tone that will calm your dog down. Absolutely great. I need to get it. Ever since my daughter left for college, my dog is a hyper mess being anxiety ridden. So as I said, I think one of the most important things of the pandemic was that connectivity that we've been able to get. And we've all gotten much more comfortable online, on Zoom calls, using technology. My sophomore daughter is full distance learning, so she's right next to me when she's doing online school. I don't think she's as happy as I am because now there's no such thing as snow days anymore. They can always learn at home. I'm thrilled about that. She not so much. But my aunt used to live downstairs from us until 1.5 years ago when she went in a nursing home. My mom and her have been doing Zoom calls and FaceTime. So to see my 91-year-old aunt on with my mom, they are so cute, laughing and joking on Zoom. It's been amazing. And then we were able to have our Zoom family reunion this summer. My cousin just had a baby. She's in Canada. My other cousin teaches in South Korea. We were all able to get together over Zoom and do that. And that I don't think is going to change. I think that has been so important for so many people who haven't been able to get together to keep that connectivity. And seniors are online now. In fact, 60% of seniors over 65 are online. 80% are online weekly. However, they're not necessarily taking the precautions they need to. They have the least amount use of privacy settings, which is so important. And here's why. The number one thing, if you don't remember anything else of this, please, please, please password protect your home Wi-Fi. If someone is driving by and you don't have password protected and it's open, they literally can get your Wi-Fi signal and download financial information, personal information, all of that. If you are out getting Dunkin' Donuts or wherever and you get public Wi-Fi and you are shopping, don't do it. Again, if you are shopping online and you're using a public Wi-Fi, anybody can grab your credit card information. So we're all shopping online. I constantly getting packages now, but here's a couple of tips for when you're shopping online. First of all, shop at stores you know. It helps. I made the mistake, it wasn't a scam, but in March, I had ordered this really cute top, long sleeve, and I'm waiting. It doesn't get here till June. It turns out it was coming from China. Well, by the time I got it, it was 90 degrees. I didn't need a long sleeve top anymore. So always look at social media reviews. Don't look at the reviews on the store's website. Go offline, look at reviews, see if they're reputable, see what their return policy is, if it's hard returning it, see if the quality is good, but always check it out online first. Never use the same password at different stores. Here's why. If you have the same password at Amazon, that you have at CVS, that you have at Kohl's or Macy's, if somebody gets the one password, they could use it or try to use it in other stores and grab all of your information and go shopping on you. So make sure you have different ones. The other thing is when you are online anywhere, in the URL, look and see if there's a little lock icon in front of the URL. Because if there is, that means they have a lot of security in place. If there's not a little lock there, chances are they don't have good privacy and software protection on there, and it could mean that it's easier to get their information. So make sure you're looking for that. And then just keep all emails, confirmations, everything until you receive the product, you try it on, and you make sure you want to keep it. So keep all of that. I'm notorious for losing those emails. Print them out, keep them somewhere until then. While seniors are online, a third of people over 65 admit that they're really not comfortable being online. I can tell you, I'm not over 65. I have problems with Instagram. I'm asking my 14-year-old. But you see this frequently, even with my mom. She'll ask me how to upload a picture from her phone. Or recently, oh my gosh, she was shopping online. I think she was on DSW. And she came down and she said, oh, I'm getting a 30-day free trial of my shoes. I was like, okay, that's really strange. Well, I looked. She had inadvertently purchased Amazon Prime rather than the shoes. So I was like, no, you don't want to do that. So, be careful of that. The confusion is also the reason that older adults are the prime target for online scams. And the two biggest online scams are tech support and raffle promotions. So with the tech support, this happened to my friend's mom. She thought she got an email from Microsoft that said she had to check and put in her new password and everything. It was like, no, stop, don't. If you get an email from your bank, from Microsoft, from Google, from Amazon, and they're asking you to input something or click on something, don't. Immediately shut it down. Either call your bank or go online on a separate site and check, because no site that's reputable is going to ask for financial or personal information. So make sure you don't do that. And then from the promotion scams, it's always, well, you can get this free thing. But in order to get this free thing, you'll click through and then it'll say, sign up for this, sign up for this, sign up for this. And all of a sudden, all of your information is all over the place. So nothing's ever for free. We know that. So buyer beware on all of that. The other problem is with technology right now, we do have so many devices in our home. 21 million Americans don't have high-speed internet access. And what that means is because we have so many devices running, it slows our internet down. So we get it where we freeze all of a sudden and we're missing out on our Zoom calls and things like that. So we need to get high-speed internet access. That is why, because of all those devices running. Fortunately, there are a lot of devices out there that are easy to use for all of us, but especially seniors. The Amazon Show, the Jitterbug 2, the GrandPad, and of course the iPad. Now, the Jitterbug 2 is a serious upgrade from the first Jitterbug, which is, if you don't know it, it was a mobile phone for seniors with larger buttons to call, and also you could pre-program with pictures certain people call. The Jitterbug 2 is more like a smartphone. It still has a larger interface, but you can use it to get navigation somewhere. You can use it for, finding things on the internet, things like that. But the most important thing is it has this button called Great Call. And what that is you just press this button in any sort of problem. If you've locked yourself out of your house, if you went somewhere and you got lost, if you had a serious issue in the community, you hit a great call and you can immediately get service from their operators to either connect you with 911 or help you themselves. So I love the great call for that. The GrandPad is like that, but it's a tablet, which I like. It doesn't have a great call button, something like that, but what it does have is a partnership with Lyft. So like with my son, he's not going to drive. With the tablet, you can actually pre-program places you want to go. So say you could put in hair salon or Nancy's house. You hit Nancy's house, Lyft will come and take you to Nancy's house. So it's very cool for that. Now the Amazon Show, people are like, oh, why do I really need that? I have a tablet, I have my computer. What I like about the Amazon Show is it has better sound quality. It can pick it up from across the room. You don't have to be huddled over your phone. It's a larger screen, which is nice. And also for visually impaired, it has something called the show and tell. So literally you can identify grocery items. You can hold it up to something and say, Alexa, what am I holding? And it'll tell you. So it's really cool for that. And then the iPad, my mom's always had an iPad. I've had an iPad, but until COVID, she never really used it to a full extent. She just used it for reading. Now she uses it to do puzzles online because our library was closed down. She uses it to do her FaceTimes with my aunt. She uses it to stream Netflix. So you can't say enough about an iPad. It's an awesome product. The social isolation factor can't be overstated during the pandemic. And it's not just for seniors. For people like myself who have adult children who don't live with them but are in a group home, people who are 30, who are 40, through the entire pandemic, they could not go visit their adult children in that group home. And imagine how scary and disturbing it was and anxiety ridden for that person in the group home not to see their family for 4 months, or for that parent not to know how things were going on. It's profoundly scary. I'm grateful that my mom lives with us. I can't imagine for some of my friends whose parents live a state away or even 3 cities away and couldn't see them throughout the pandemic. And in fact, the ARP did a study and found that 43% of people over age 60 reported feeling lonely. And that translates into health problems. They've linked it to high blood pressure, physical inactivity, obesity, increase in smoking, and premature death. So the social isolation has been, there's always been a lot with seniors, and now it's even magnified. The good thing that is not in the future, it's here now, is social robots. Now, every year I go to the largest computer show called the Consumer Electronics Show in Vegas. There are thousands of robots. It's amazing. And this isn't the robot like the Jetsons with the big steel, tin. These are real robots. And they are going to be taking the place of our voice activated systems in our home. They look real. They sound real. Instead of giving Alexa commands, you're going to be able to say like serious commands of, please go to the refrigerator, get me cheese and crackers and bring back a glass of water. Like serious things like that. And they are increasingly becoming smarter and having emotional intelligence, being able to interpret speech and gestures, recognize voices and faces, interact with people, make eye contact, speak conversationally, which they are showing when seniors not only are accepting interaction with robots, but they are improving health and well-being and a sense of happiness. So this has been incredible. But on top of that, what's nice is they will be able to be used in nursing homes and senior care facilities if we have another pandemic, because you can sanitize the robots. And when humans can't be near somebody during the pandemic, these social robots can. So stay tuned for this. This is not coming in 10, 20 years. This is here now, and you're going to see a major increase in the adoption of social robots throughout. Independence, as the wife of somebody with primary progressive MS, I understand only too well that desire to keep your independence, to not be dependent on your spouse, on another person. It is very difficult. And not only is it difficult for my husband, but I actually worry for myself. My husband is 6'1", 225 pounds. I can help him now, but I worry about what's going to happen in the future when I'm not strong enough to help him. And I'm so grateful for the smart devices we have now and the smart devices that will be coming, so that it will not only allow me to continue working and him be here, but to help him when I can't help him anymore. And I think that is really important. And seniors want to age in place. They can't age in place if they can't be independent. We can't, most people, going to an assisted living and nursing home is incredibly expensive and out of the reach of normal people. According to AARP, 55 million people are over the age of 65 right now. 87% of them say they plan to continue living at home rather than transition into a nursing home. And right now, there's about over 75%, 75 people over age 75, 44% of them are living alone, women. Sorry, so 75-year-old women, 44% are living alone. So that's just going to grow. And there's no doubt that smart homes are here to stay, are the way of the future. In fact, by 2030, 70.6 million homes will be smart homes. That is double what it is in 2018. So that's a big jump in smart homes. And 54% of homeowners plan to purchase smart home products to increase their value of their home. So people understand this isn't just for ease of use, for safety. There's an economic benefit to smart devices. The average monthly savings right now is $98 a month. That's over $1,100 a year because of smart devices. And that's just going to keep going up. And in fact, 81% of people who are in the market to buy a home right now say they're looking for homes with a smart system. I live in Connecticut. The people flocking out of New York ever since COVID is crazy. And they are. They want to have homes that have smart devices already built into them. So it's just the right thing to do. Right now, the average home has 11 smart devices. That's going to go up to 20. I blew past that. With 6 people in my home, well, my daughter's at college right now, but with 6 people, I probably conservatively have about 30 smart devices in my home. And you probably do have some too. Your phone is a smart device. So we all have smart devices. It depends on how we're using them. I have the Cox smart home system, Home Life, and it helps me in a lot of ways. So as I said, my mom lives on the 2nd floor. She doesn't just have a bedroom up there. Like, that's her suite. She has a mini refrigerator. She has a microwave. She has a toaster. Like, she could live up there right now. She can survive up there. But what I want to have happen is when she gets out of bed at night, I want lights to go on. I want motion sensors to turn on lights. If she's coming down the hall, if she's coming downstairs, I have motion sensors so lights will go on down the stairs. I have it set up so if I'm not home and she's coming down the stairs, I can get text alerts so I know where she is. Because God forbid she falls down the stairs. I need to know as soon as possible. That's one of the critical components of that. As I said, I live in Connecticut. Right now the weather's crazy. I woke up yesterday morning, it was 45 degrees. By 1 o'clock, it was 70. I have smart thermostats. So if somebody is in a certain room, it will turn down the heat in that room rather than all over the house. So I can adjust where, how the heat is working and the thermostat and save money that way. It will just affect a certain room, which is really cool. I have the lights turned on, my lights programmed to automatically go on when somebody comes in or out the front door. As the days are getting shorter and it's getting darker, I don't want my husband coming in his wheelchair with it dark, so I have the lights automatically go on, which makes it a lot nicer. We also have cameras in our driveway. This is super cool. Unfortunately, we're having a rash of break-ins. In fact, around the corner, this poor girl, as her college present, she got a car. It was stolen right out of her driveway. One night, my mom forgot to lock her car doors. Somebody got in. They didn't steal it, but they rummaged around in her glove box. I think they stole her phone wire, her charger. We were able to look back at our camera, see the kids who broke in, and give it to the police. And now more than ever with this election going on, you've got people coming to your front door, going door to door, asking you who you're going to vote for, people coming, making deliveries. I want to see who's at the front door before I answer it. And also, as I said, if my mom's upstairs, I don't want her answering it. So I have automatic locks. I can see who's at my front door. And if I want to unlock the door and say, you can leave the box in my front foyer, I can do that remotely, which is so cool. I also have smart smoke detectors. So as I said, my aunt, before she moved into a nursing home, lived with us downstairs. I got an alert on my phone that there was a fire downstairs. Raced downstairs. Well, she had left a pot on the stove and it had boiled down and was smoking up. She didn't even notice. She didn't even realize. And so I would also want that, for anybody, if I had somebody living, away, I could get those alerts. I could also call the fire department. So the smart smoke detectors really are important for anybody. But there's also so many smart devices around the home that are just so cool right now. One of them is called the Cooking Pal. So I have an Instant Pot, I have a slow cooker. The Cooking Pal takes it to a new dimension. It cooks, it chops, it emulsifies, it kneads, it does everything in this one pot. But what's really cool is it has a tablet. So you can take the tablet, take a picture of like an ingredient, a tomato, and it will give you recipes to use with that tomato based on what else you have in the house, which is so cool. But then once you're cooking it, that tablet, you can take the tablet into the next room. It will show you how long it's cooking and you can adjust the temperatures. You never have to walk back into the kitchen until it's done. It is so cool. It is top on my Christmas list. The other thing that is really cool is the Nume Kohler toilet. Now, I first got introduced to this. I was staying at a friend's house about a year ago. It was dark. I go into the bathroom and lights come on the toilet. I sit down and the toilet seat heats up. So I've got a warm tushy and the floor, the feet heat up as well. But then it's Bluetooth enabled and Wi-Fi connected. So you can get music, you can get the football game. Men are never going to leave the bathroom again with this thing. It's hilarious. The other thing I said, talk about smart devices that save money too, is the smart refrigerator. So it always calibrates the temperature. You can adjust it higher or lower, but it has a whole home hub pad on the front. I can see who's coming in the front door from my refrigerator. I can see what's in the refrigerator. If I am out shopping and I forget if I have eggs, I can see if there's eggs there. So literally, my friend has one of these. It has a Keurig built in. You can make coffee from your refrigerator. It is the coolest thing. So I absolutely love that. I think without a doubt, through this virus, telehealth and staying healthy, both proactively and reactively, has been huge. And telemedicine is here to stay. With the exception of my mom's hip replacement surgery and me fracturing a wrist, none of us, we've all had health visits. Not one of us has been to the doctor, including my husband seeing his neurologist. It was all online. And there's so many benefits to that. First of all, I don't have to go to a doctor if it's a well visit where somebody may be sick. I don't have to sit there for an hour anymore waiting for the doctor to come in. I could be actually working or doing something while I'm waiting for the doctor. So there's so many benefits to this. And the demand for it has increased 64% just since the beginning of the year. And the temporary closure of visiting nurse services, community health services has majorly impacted seniors. Anybody for that matter. For people who have just had a baby, they weren't able to have visiting nurse services come check on you and the baby. So telemedicine has been incredible, not just for emergencies, but just disease self-management and pro health. But Zoom calls are just the tip of the iceberg of what's happening now with telehealth. It's incredible what we can do from a proactive and reactive standpoint. And come on, let's admit it. I know for me, unless I've got something really wrong, I'm not going to the doctor. I just don't have time until something's wrong. And that's the problem. So with these devices, it not only is telling me what's going on in my body, but I can, like with my mom, she can share the information with me. So somebody far away, you can see what's happening with your aging senior, your older parent. One of the things I had for my aunt before she moved to the nursing home was a wireless bed alarm. So this was something that I would get an alert if she tried to step out of bed. Now, she had dementia and she was tiny, like she's still tiny. She was like 90 pounds and I was really worried about her falling. And in fact, that's what happened. So with the alarm, I got an alert that she'd gotten out of bed. I was able to go down there and she was on the ground. If I hadn't had that, she could have been on the ground for 5-6 hours. And if it's a stroke, which it was a mini stroke, timing is of the essence, getting treatment to how that stroke will impact you. So the wireless bed alarms are great. My mom has an EKG system. It actually is thumbs. It attaches to her phone and she in 30 seconds gets her EKG results that can go to her doctor. Now, this is another example. If she didn't live with me, I could be staying on that top of that too. Mom, how's your readings been? But there's so many other proactive health things. You can check your heart rate. You can check all of these different types of self-tests that you can send to your doctor just to monitor now, which is amazing. So the doctor visit goes faster. You're monitoring these things. For people with celiac or Crohn's disease, there is a device that you can check what you're eating, digestive issues. And then one thing that I want to get is a smart scale that tests your balance. So for people, one of the first signs for MS is a lack of balance and falling. Doctors usually don't pick up on it. You don't usually pick up on it for a while. But if you've got a scale like this that can test your balance, that might give you an indication something's wrong and you should go check it out. So I love that. I think it's great for all of us who may have even beginning hip issues and are like to a side or something like that. I think that is absolutely crucial. But these devices are just one thing. The wearables are amazing. Another device I want is the Apple Watch Series 6. Apple Watches are great in and of themselves in terms of health monitoring when you're walking, your steps, your sleep, all of that. But the new watch can actually monitor your oxygen level and if your oxygen is depleting. And what we probably all now know from COVID is one of the symptoms is a decrease in your oxygen level. So that is something that's absolutely huge. The smart soul. So I was talking about hopefully my son living alone one day or with a roommate. I still worry about where he is in the community. I still worry about what's going on in his apartment. And I have to tell you, up until maybe 6-7 years ago, families with an adult child, 30 or 40 years old, they were never able to live independently, which was incredibly sad for parents like us because A, we worry what's going to happen when we die, but B, we want our adult children to live as normal a life as we can. So with products like the Smart Soul, I could tell exactly where Spencer is because people with autism, people with intellectual disabilities tend to wander. Spencer takes walks all around the neighborhood, which is fine. But if we're in an area that he doesn't know, if we're in a park or a beach, I worry about that. With Smart Soul, I can tell exactly where he is. And it's the same with people with dementia or Alzheimer's. So the Smart Soul, if they're not going to wear a device, is absolutely awesome. My husband, we also have Cox Home Life Care. So this is a pendant that he can wear in the shower. It can get wet, which is really good because we know the majority of falls happen in the shower. I mean, it's happened to my husband more times than I care to admit. It just is. So if he's in the shower and he's got this, he can talk to the main hub And if he falls, they will call him, check if he's okay. He can talk to them, but I will also get a text, which is what happened last time. I wasn't home and he took a shower, so I know something happened, and they will call EMTs to come and help him. So for any senior, anybody with a disability, having something you can wear in the shower is absolutely huge. So all of these devices are just changing the game of how we can keep ourselves healthy, but also how we can keep ourselves safe and independent. So I laugh when people talk about, well, maybe in the spring we'll be back to normal. You know what? We're never going to be back to where we were pre-COVID. We're just not. We are going to have a new normal because we probably will have something happen again, like COVID. We are an aging population. We need these devices, and technology is helping us. Technology is helping us stay connected with loved ones like never before. It's allowing us to stay independent, and it's allowing us to monitor our health and stay healthier. So this is an opportunity that we've never had before, and I'm so excited to be a part of this generation. So thank you very much for joining me. I would love to answer any questions you have now, so feel free to send them my way.
Welcome, everyone, and thank you for joining us on our presentation on the Roaring 20s, the 2020s, that is. For many of you who may be in the business of public speaking or presenting before audiences, whenever you're in need of a quote filled with wit or cleverness, you need to go no further than famed baseball legend Yogi Berra. Among many of his quips and one-liners, and one of my favorites, later in his career when Yogi Berra was asked about the prospect of his team, the New York Yankees, in the upcoming season, he answered the question, "The future ain't what it used to be." Berra was simply suggesting, in his view, that the future later in his career was not what it was in comparison to earlier in his career. Although Yogi Berra meant it as a less desirable prediction of the future, I would like to use his remark in a more positive manner and welcome you to a future none of us have ever dreamed of. Each generation, based on how they perceive technological advancements, try to gauge what lies ahead. It's just human nature. I grew up in the 60s and 70s and vividly remember watching on July 20th, 1969, and vividly remember watching the landing on the moon. I also remember building with my dad a plastic model replica of the SST, if you remember the supersonic transport Concorde aircraft. Because we had just recently landed on the moon, and also because my generation, including me, probably watched too many reruns of the Jetsons, Lost in Space, and Star Trek, our view of the future included such technological advancements like moon bases, flying cars, personal robots that would serve our every need. If anything else, 50 years ago, we dreamed of big things with the widespread vision of the future, really focusing on physical machines that would propel us to higher and move faster and farther. As everyone knows, very difficult to predict the future. Predictions of the future are often off of the mark, as the visions of what lie ahead are confined based on what we know at the current time, those technological advancements we are aware of whenever we view the future based on today. The predictions of creative visionaries are typically limited simply to one's brain capacity to dream, while the actual future evolves with no such constraints. We may have been wrong about the future and the technological advancements that were forthcoming because we didn't advance in a manner that we thought, looking back 50 years, some of the things that the world enjoys today. Think about this: information access at our fingertips, streaming entertainment, global social connection, instant money transfer, and that palm-sized communication device. The great news is that the world is far more efficient and connected than we ever dreamed of. Granted, we can't beam each other up like Scotty did to Captain Kirk, nor can we physically move at warp speed like the USS Enterprise. But more importantly, the images of us can and the data we wish to transmit. Our bodies may not speed through the air in the George Jetson flying sedan, but our thoughts, our pictures, and ideas can now travel around the world at the speed of light. Instead of moving people through space, we found more value and effectiveness by moving data around the earth. As in many areas of life, we didn't get what we wanted, we got what we needed. In the decade of the 2020s, we may lament the fact that we don't have flying cars, but we certainly greatly laud having the world's encyclopedia via Google literally in the palm of our hand. Simply put, the world is far more advanced, efficient, and connected than we could have ever dreamed possible. Because of this massive transition in how we access information, we believe, like legendary football coach George Allen, when he was asked repeatedly about the prospects of his team and why he traditionally would bring on aged players to his football team, he answered with the question, "The future is now." So you may ask the question, how do we know that? How do we know that the future is now? I'll go back to a great 1970s book and a movie called All the President's Men. You know the story very well. Two Washington Post writers, Woodward and Bernstein, were hot on the trail of trying to find out how far up the administration the Watergate break-in went. However, they grew weary, they grew frustrated. So they assigned themselves an inside mole who called himself anonymously Deep Throat. And when Woodward and Bernstein were pressing Deep Throat for questions, he asked them a similar question. He said, "You know what you need to do?" And they said, "What?" "You need to follow the money." And that's exactly what we're going to do in this situation. Do you realize that today in corporate America that we actually spend, and I have this up on the screen, more than double the capital expenditures that we spent in the 1960s and the 1970s simply on technology alone. CapEx stands again for capital expenditures. Think about this, in 1980, the amount of dollars that were spent on technology only encompassed 22% of companies' expenses. Today, it's at 50% of every dollar of capital expenditures is allocated towards technology. Q2 of 2020, the most recent data we had, right in the midst of COVID-19, companies collectively spent $1.3 trillion, that's with a T, on SAS, software as a service, and tech equipment. Here's the good news, ladies and gentlemen. I still firmly believe that we're in the early stages of this massive shift. Last decade, tech CapEx, again, capital expenditures, doubled from 4% to 8%. Think about this. Many of you may have worked in the decades of the 1980s. Some of you may have had a customer or a client list, and you went out and what did you do? You bought the trusty Rolodex, right, which was a little box which contained all the information in alphabetical order of your clients and or customers. And you probably spent, what, $20 or $25 for that device. Today, we wouldn't think twice about spending $100 per month, a recurring charge, to access Salesforce.com, where at our fingertips, we can simply just using our voice, get into that database and unearth whatever data we want on our clients. How about the three biggies? AMG, Amazon, Microsoft, and Google, otherwise known as Alphabet. Do you realize, this is fascinating when you think about it, they spend between 10 and $15 billion with a B every year on their data centers and their cloud storage. But here's the big one. Online purchases, which certainly we've been forced to do, many of us confined to our homes in COVID-19, still only encompass or account for 10% of retail sales. Now, not only do we believe that we're in the early stages of this stunning technological transition, but you know what we have on our side to gauge this in addition to following the money? We have history on our side as a great guide to the future. A review of U.S. history suggests this: technological trends follow periods of great tragedy. And this has happened in our country by no means not being common. It is ordinary. And I'm going to walk you through a couple of these. Think about this. The great second industrial revolution of 1870 to 1900 followed on the heels of what? Probably the darkest period in our country's history, the Civil War. Now think about this. Can you imagine awakening in April of 1865? That's when the Civil War ended. 500,000 people lost their lives, brother fighting brother in that war. Could you imagine waking up and saying, you know what? There's going to be great technological advancement. I'm going to get out whatever little money I have in my savings, and I'm going to begin investing in great companies. Why would you do that? You would only do that unless you understood that from great tragedy comes great technological advancement. And that's what ended up happening. The development of the railroad cross-country helped build the West Coast as we know it, moving westward during that period of time. We had economic expansion for 3 decades following the Civil War. How about the period that we believe most resembles today? That was the end of World War I. World War I globally took the lives of 20 million people. But even greater than that was the Spanish flu. Again, very common to those of us today going through COVID-19. But think about the data in the years 1918 to 1920 when the Spanish flu was prolific. We had a global population of 1.3 billion, that's with a B, people. 500 million people infected by Spanish flu. 40 million lost their lives. Twice as many people lost their lives in the Spanish flu as did in World War I. However, both of these events were the cause, yes, of a dire series of events that were to follow, but the good news is what followed again was great technological advancement. So why do we believe the 1920s resemble today? I have some of this stuff up on the screen here. Little do people remember, or if they were taught in the history books, that we actually had a depression. Now, they referred to it as the Great Recession of the early 1920s. It actually lasted 18 months. That's 9 months longer than the Great Recession that we just went through in 08 and 09. Why did we go through this mini depression, as it was called? Part of the reason we have up on the screen here, I think that we had this transition, which is always very difficult, from a wartime to a peacetime economy. That's number 3. But if you take a look at 1 and 2, we had the absorption of millions of veterans who actually served in World War I and came back and were needed to be engrafted into the economy. They needed certainly to have jobs, and it was very difficult for that transition. The economic effect of the Spanish flu was mind-boggling when you think about the fact that unlike COVID-19, which have taken the lives mostly of seniors, in that Spanish flu, most of the deaths were among youth, and many of them in the latter teens. So the workforce was deplete of those individuals of that era. So let's just fast forward here to some others that we've seen that were, again, tragedies in our country's history, yet we came out with great technological advancement. We have the 1950s and the 1990s boom that I have up on the screen. Think about this. In the 1950s, following World War II, which had an estimated death of 75 million people, globally led to a great post-war boom in the development of what? Of jet travel. Also the space race. Fast forward another 20 plus years, we go through another dilemma, the 1970s. We go off the gold standard in 1971. The US dollar begins to get decimated. We have the price of gold dramatically go up. We have 2 oil embargoes. We have massive inflation, double-digit inflation, double-digit interest rates. Think about this in the early 80s when I was in high school. I remember my parents telling me with mortgage rates above 20%, there's no way that your generation is ever going to buy a home. Today, where are mortgage rates? They're in the 2s, not the 20s, but in the 2s. That era led to a technological boom, cellular phone technology, the mobile phones that we use today, The World Wide Web, as we used to call it, the development of the internet, and oh, don't forget the development of the PC and the Apple Macintosh as we walk through the 80s and the 90s. Again, coming off that great peril that actually decimated society at the time. When we went through it, we felt that there was no light at the end of the tunnel. How about the boom of the 1920s? That was no different, right? Think about this again, World War I, the Spanish flu, a depression, and all of a sudden we come out of it and we had this mass adoption of the radio, of the film industry, movies, the phonograph, the invention of the bulldozer, which led to the ability to construct residences and commercial office space in a much greater capacity, which certainly led to the development of skyscrapers later on in that decade in the early 30s. The assembly line production of the automobile, and I think most importantly, the development of penicillin to treat bacterial infections. So what can we look forward to in the roaring 2020s? What are the dilemmas? What are the global unrest that may bring, again, a decade of great technological advancement? Certainly, we're going through this global pandemic right now of COVID-19. Certainly, we're in a much more synchronized global economy. But what are some of the things that I believe that are good that have come out of this? We have them listed on the screen, and I think now there's a heightened awareness across major institutions that they need to work together. And this political rancor that we're walking through today, it may not seem as that, but just walk back 6 months in the middle of March when we found out that COVID-19 was going to spread as much as it did. We had private businesses working with public healthcare officials. I want you to think about the importance of that. Before the pandemic, good, bad, or indifferent, biopharma, large pharma had a black eye. They had a stigma. Whether you believe it or not, they were actually accused of price gouging. So what has happened? They have worked with public healthcare officials to work on a vaccine. We all know that. Also providing medicines at low or zero cost to help people who actually have the disease. We didn't have that before. We actually did have government working together. We had the executive branch working with Congress to provide stimulus to those who certainly need it. We had the Federal Reserve. Remember the animus between the Federal Reserve and the executive branch in 2018. The Fed expanded their balance sheet from $3 trillion to $6 trillion, and it's growing, to do whatever they can, again, to get us through this bad period. The financial markets have come together in this by accepting the policies of the Federal Reserve and certainly the federal government. So society in general has worked, albeit it's been difficult to fight COVID-19. So what has this led to? This has led to the need for advancement in technological products and services, and I have it right up on the screen. The broadening need for telecommuting. Think about what we're doing through this presentation, something we would have never thought before, and certainly the quick adoption, not only by people in their 20s and 30s who now will be using this forever, but I am so pleased to see people who are probably out of the workforce, have been retired, but have embraced this technology and understand, you know what, I can get information, I can get education, I can decide when I want to leave my house at certain points in time when this COVID-19 is behind us, but I also enjoy the luxury of sitting in my own house and learning and being educated through a process such as this. What are the things that have changed dramatically? Think about our personal devices, whether they're a tablet or a phone or a PC. We now store data no longer in the device physically. We store it in the cloud, as we call it, right? The cloud is actually massive warehouses with massive computers that are storing yours and mine data. Now, there's always bad guys, right? The bad guys want to take our data. The protection of that data is paramount. We're going to get to that in the next screen. How about the second thing, the technological changes? Doing financial transactions without physical touch. Now, the World Health Organization has come out, and they have been adamant about the fact that touching paper currency and transferring it to another individual, you're highly unlikely to get COVID-19. Nonetheless, you and I now have been forced, if you will, to use mobile pay technology that we would have never thought possible before. How about medical procedures, robotic surgeries, counseling without, again, physical touch or being in front of an individual? And last but not least, probably all of us have used the services, the delivery services. Amazon certainly is the big giant in that industry. And I do just want to mention this as I'm walking through, and especially on the next slide, I'm going to mention companies. And I just want to say this up front, not a solicitation or a recommendation to buy any company that I mention. I think it's just important to get relative with the businesses that are operating in these areas where we think there's great advancement. So the last one on the list, the delivery of goods using efficient, energy efficient, I should say, means of transportation. So where do these big opportunities lie? Think the letter C, such as cat, or as in Charlie. Think of the letter C, unfortunately, coronavirus, COVID-19. So we listed 5 areas that are technology-based where we think there is great investment opportunity going forward. So I'm going to walk through each one of these. I am going to mention a couple of names of companies. So again, please, if you will, understand I am not soliciting, or recommending these for purchase. So the first one is in the area of commerce. Again, this transition from physically purchasing something in front of somebody to doing it electronically. Think of a company like Carvana. And if anybody's used that to purchase a used car, fascinating service without physically touching anyone. You can buy your car online and have it delivered to your home. A company like Etsy, which sells what's called them homemade crafts and other art pieces that you can buy online and get them for very low cost. The second one is cashless transactions. I want you guys to think of a startling statistic. Back in the middle of the year, when we started getting used to using mobile pay or payment processing companies, that 94% globally of all transactions, financially speaking, are still done through cash, check, or credit card. You and I now are getting used to using services such as Square and PayPal. Again, investment opportunities that have done exceptionally well this year. But if I'm in a business and I know that I've only penetrated 6% of the available capacity, I'm pedal to the metal from that company and trying to expand my operations. Let's get to the third C. We call this the race for the cure. Many companies are aligning themselves to focus on trying to find a vaccine for the wicked COVID-19 disease. Now, you may think investing in those opportunities has a very short tail because it's believed that the vaccine will be developed and administered here over the next 3 to 6 months. But I want you to think of companies like Regeneron, like Gilead Sciences, like Moderna, which are all involved to find the cure for COVID-19. I think we're kidding ourselves if we deny the fact that another virus will work itself around the globe at some point in the future. We've had SARS, we've had MERS, we've had the Ebola virus, the Zika virus, H1N1, otherwise known as swine flu. I think the good out of this is that these companies realize to put money into R&D, to partner with the federal government, that when we do, not if, when we get another virus, that they're willing and standing ready to find a vaccine immediately. What about cloud storage? Remember, speaking of that, we think of our data swirling around in the air. It's actually housed in facilities across our great country in large warehouses. Think of some of these companies, Salesforce.com, which I mentioned earlier, and Twilio. The data that we so cherish and we're so dependent upon personally, no matter if it's our bank account, no matter if it's our Facebook account, no matter where it's stored in the cloud. And I think lastly, the key is this. Cybersecurity companies have stepped up significantly, making it so much more difficult, I'm going to call them the bad guys, from getting at, again, the data that's so very important to us. Think of a company like Okta. Think of a company like Checkpoint Software, again, which is every step of the way ahead of those individuals who are desiring to bring us down by stealing our data. So let's transition a little into the next piece here, which is how do I even start the process? Let's say that you're convinced that this is an area in our time in history where there is great peril, where many people are fearful about the next day before them. And there's certainly justification to that. But I think you're hard-pressed not to look at history and see that every time we've had peril, our country has stepped up to the plate. And through technological advancements, we've been able to foresee at that time what is the next wave of technology. And I'm firmly convinced on the last slide, those are the big 5 areas. So how do you start the process? Where do you begin? Here's a key thing that we use. We use technology ourselves in trying to understand how portfolios are constructed, what are the underlying companies and sectors inside an investor's portfolio, but as importantly, to unearth what they're paying for those investments, and from a statistical standpoint, to see how diversified they are and how correlated their investments are. And that is key. So I'm going to ask you, what technology are you using to make an assessment on how you're investing? I'm going to give you a couple of things. I've got 5 check marks here as just friendly series of words of advice that you can take with you to better understand how you are invested and whether you're going to be taking advantage of technology going forward in the roaring 2020s. So here's the first one. We should always be about the business of knowing what we own and why we own it. The great Peter Lynch said that. Now, what do I mean by that? I ask investors all the time, what's your number one holding? And they'll say, well, it's the XYZ fund in my 401k or in my IRA. And I say, no. I'm saying, what's the number one company that you own? And they're hard-pressed to understand that. When we know what we own, what business it is, whether it's Microsoft or McDonald's or Nike or 3M or Disney, we have a better understanding when the prices of those companies drop because of some peril. It gives us a greater confidence if we know the business, we know the investment, that we're less apt to do a knee-jerk reaction and sell in the midst of peril, like many people unfortunately did in March of this year. Number 2, we should be always going about the business of knowing what we're paying for what we own. We have software that we've invested tens of thousands of dollars, actually 6 figures, to unearth from a transparent standpoint how much it costs to invest in XYZ fund or ETF. What is the fee that's being charged to you to have that fund managed? What about the legal costs? What about the cost that goes to the custodian? Every investor should be aware of not only what they own, but what they're paying for what they own. The next one is we should always be about the business, going about the business of understanding how every component interacts together. Now think about this. When you step into your automobile, you're not, unless you have a Tesla or a battery powered, right? You have the conventional gas powered engine. And all you know is this: you unlock your door, you get in, you push the button or you turn the key, you step on the accelerator, the car drives, and you move on. The underlying parts, you're not even thinking twice about how they interact. And many people think the same way about their portfolio. But shrewd investors understand that when they choose investments, yes, to own growth technology, but also own other companies that maybe have a lower correlation to those growth businesses. Do you understand how those components overact? I love the next one. We should always be about going the business of knowing how over-diversified we really are. The great investor Warren Buffett said this. He said, over-diversification is only for people who have no idea what they're doing. What is over-diversification? I look at portfolios all the time, and what I see is a laundry list of thousands of companies, each company less than 1% of the portfolio, with redundancy not only of the holding itself, but of the costs of duplicate holdings in owning XYZ fund, ABC fund, EDF fund, that all have similar holdings. So we should be going about the business of understanding whether we're over-diversified. Think of this. We've had diversification preached to us over the last 30 years, right? All of us who've had 401k, 403bs. Diversification is good, but it's like chocolate. Only a little is what is healthy for you. Over-diversification is only for people who have no idea what they're doing. And here's the last one. This is key. Always be about the business of knowing the tax ramification of every decision that you make. Yes, I firmly believe that we're going to go through the roaring 2020s. But what lies ahead after this decade? In the early 2030s, it's projected that Social Security is going to run a deficit. The markets probably will demand within the next decade or so that Social Security be shored up. What's a way to do it? To raise taxes. Are you taking advantage today in your portfolios to understand that maybe it's okay to pay tax today at a lower rate where we are historically? So let's get to the last screen here, guys, and we'll wrap this up. I want to ask this question to everyone. The technology-led roaring 2020s are here. And I think all you have to do is look at the history of our country, and I have them listed right here for you. Previous global crises have always led to technology investment revolutions. I would see no reason why this one wouldn't hold the same. Think of the 30 years following the U.S. Civil War. We never dreamed of that when we were the darkest period of our U.S. history. Think about the roaring 20s, again, following the Spanish flu. Again, 40 million deaths, 500 million people globally getting that disease. World War I, 20 million. Think about the decade of the 50s and the mid-60s, following 1948, when the election between Harry S. Truman, the incumbent, and Thomas Dewey, the challenger, was all about the economy. Going into the second Great Depression is what economists were saying. There's no way that we can have a peacetime economy that was as good as that fueled the war, the manufacturing thereof. Think about the 80s and the 90s that fell off the heels of the 1970s. Again, massive inflation, double-digit interest rates, double-digit unemployment. We did not think that the future was going to be that we could walk around with a phone in our hand with that technology that also led to the World Wide Web being developed and certainly the PC. I'll leave you with two great investors who took a different twist. We call it a contrarian view of the world. And Warren Buffett said it well. He said, when people get fearful, I get greedy. Now, not greedy in an evil sense, but in an opportunistic sense. Another great investor, Sir John Templeton, who's no longer alive. By the way, Warren Buffett just turned 90. Sir John Templeton was a great investor in the 1950s. And Sir John Templeton was born in the U.S., became a British citizen. In 1950, he said, I'm going to go visit ravaged Japan and Great Britain. And I'm going to come back, and I'm going to start the first international mutual fund, which he did. Many of you may have invested in the Templeton Global Fund, which is one of the great international funds of all time. Templeton, like Buffett, not only a great investor, but a very witty man. He was asked the question about a bull market. So a bull market, by the British press, bull market, academically speaking, is very simply when you start at the bottom and you go up 20% in your investments, and voila, you're in a bull market. But here's what Templeton said in the answer to the question. He said, bull markets are born on pessimism, bull markets grow on skepticism, bull markets mature in optimism, and bull markets die, and I'll add this, a hard, cold death on euphoria. So I've asked this question, I've spoken to 1,000 investors, and I want to ask you, is anyone in the audience euphoric about the global economy today? No one's ever raised their hand. Is anyone optimistic that your children or your grandchildren will have a better financial future than you do or did? Many people don't. Is anyone in the audience skeptical about what I call the big two nasty W's, Wall Street and Washington? How about this? Is anyone pessimistic about the state of the political situation in Washington, D.C.? I would answer the question like Sir John Templeton. But I would also do my second last bullet point, follow the money. If the brain power and the intellect between those great U.S. companies are spending rapidly on technology to advance their businesses, how are you doing that? Where do you view opportunities? For those of you who would like more information and possibly how to get started, or maybe some ideas, you can feel free to call Linda Smith, whose number is up on the screen, or just get in touch with her at her email address, and certainly she can pass on information to you. I wanted to thank everyone very much for your time. I hope this was as enjoyable for you as it was for me to present to you. Thank you once again, and have a great day indeed.
Thanks for joining today's talk on the latest scams and how to protect your finances, especially as it relates to the coronavirus pandemic. This talk is presented by San Diego County Credit Union. My name is Vincent Delgado. There is my contact info, so if there are any questions that come up in regards to the presentation, or you want any copies of this slide to refer back to, don't hesitate to send me an email, and I'll make sure I can share this information with you. Again, we got an exciting topic to talk about. It seems as if every day we are flooded with scams, phone calls or emails, text messages. We're bombarded with it daily, and so it's incredibly important to understand how we can protect ourselves, protect our families during this interesting and unique time that we are all dealing with. So with that being said, let's go ahead and get started here. Just to set the stage for what you can expect for the next maybe 15 minutes roughly, we're going to talk about how scammers are always on the lookout for any and all opportunities during this difficult and challenging time. Scammers are always looking to take advantage during times of vulnerability, and I think we can all admit that at some point in time during the last 6 to 8 months, we've felt vulnerable in a sense, considering the coronavirus and kind of what it's done to everyone. During this time of fear and uncertainty, scammers will set up fake websites, send phishing texts and emails, and try to sell you, phony products or phony services in an attempt to gain access to your personal information. And at the end of the day, that's what these scammers want. They want access to your personal information, be that your finances or any other identifying information that they can then pull resources, again, out of you and your family. So we're going to discuss some current scams, things that we're seeing nowadays, and ways in which you can protect yourself and protect your family. First thing first, let's talk about emails. As I mentioned at the very beginning, it seems as if more and more frequently spam emails are popping into our inbox. We all are aware of the common scams that we get, which we then have to kind of unsubscribe, or just the spam advertisements. But nowadays, there are scam emails that are requiring or calling for a call to action. Click on this link, visit this website, type in this type of information. And again, those are all scams to get us to input our personal information so that folks can then extract that. It could be potentially coming from the Center for Disease Control and Protection. It could be coming from the IRS. It can come from many different avenues. But we all need to be aware that a lot of these things, and a lot of times, it's very fake and phony, and they're just trying to extract that information. So emails may look real, but it's not from the CDC, it's not from the IRS, and we'll get a little bit more into that on this next slide here. But what they want you to do is click on links. You wind up on a site created by criminals to steal your email credentials or other information that you're asking you to input. But we really need to be aware of is that the CDC isn't going to email you asking you personally for any type of information. So if you really need to access the CDC or get a hold of them, or if you're concerned that the email that comes through doesn't look real, visit cdc.gov for the most up-to-date and accurate information. Again, they're not going to reach out to you. Do your own research to ensure that you're following a trusted website, and the email that you're receiving isn't going to cause any harm to you. I teased it earlier, but one thing that's incredibly common right now are scams that are related to the IRS because of kind of the stimulus and what's going on around that, be it, the stimulus that was distributed a couple months ago to the one that is potentially going to be happening now. We don't really know. However, As I mentioned, because of that vulnerability, because of that interest from the general public, scammers are looking to pry on that vulnerability and pry on that desire around folks' need for the stimulus. So do not respond to any emails, calls, texts about the stimulus claiming to be from the government. The IRS is never going to contact you using those channels. They will never email you. The IRS won't call you. The IRS is definitely not going to text you. Traditionally, and how they've done it in the past is how they still do it to this day. The IRS will contact you by mail, by old-fashioned snail mail in your mailbox. You do not have to sign up to receive a stimulus check. The process is automatic for anyone who qualifies. And if you really want to see if you qualify or how you can obtain your stimulus, the best thing you can do is head to the IRS website. If you type in irs.gov/coronavirus, there are some sub-tabs there for you to get a status on your stimulus and to see if you're eligible and to see how you might be able to receive it or how much money you're going to get. If someone is calling you or emailing you to confirm personal details like bank account information, social security numbers, any type of identifying information, they might say they just need this info and the stimulus money will be deposited into your account. That's not true. That is a scam. They just want to extract that information from you. So be very wary of folks calling, asking for your information or an email getting sent to you or a text message getting sent to you. That's not true. Again, that's a scam. Head to irs.gov for any information on your stimulus, and you're sure to avoid any scams or being taken advantage of if you just head to the IRS website. Because of the coronavirus, it seems as if we're constantly seeing, vaccination kits or, remedies or at-home testing kits that are either promising a cure, they can identify if you have coronavirus. There's, a vitamin drip that's sure to prevent you from getting coronavirus. Try to ignore any of these offers. These scams include to, boost immunity or, prevent you from getting the virus or, again, being able to take at-home testing kits. At this point at this current moment, there's no cure for the vaccine or there's no vaccine to cure the virus that causes COVID-19. Also, there are no approved tests that consumers can order and test themselves at home for COVID-19. Tests are being conducted around the country, and as it relates to San Diego and Southern California as a whole, the tests are being monitored at the county level. So we encourage you to visit your local county website to go get tested, or better yet, reach out to your healthcare provider, reach out to your doctor if you feel the need to get tested, or if you have any questions around how to stay healthy during the coronavirus. Your best bet is to reach out to your healthcare provider or visit the county website, and they'll share any and all information as it relates to coronavirus and how to protect yourself. Again, as I mentioned, try to ignore these offers. They're really just trying to extract money from you. And not to mention, you don't know what you're going to be given in return. They promise to have vitamin drips or they promise to have some type of remedies. You don't want to take that stuff. You don't know what's in it. You don't know what harm it can cause to you. So again, I can't echo enough. Make sure you're contacting your local, county representatives, or you're reaching out to your local healthcare provider, because they can definitely guide you in the right direction on how to protect yourself and stay away from some of these fake vaccines and fake vitamin drips to boost your immunity. During difficult world catastrophic events, think of tsunamis, wildfires, especially as of recently, in California and across the West Coast, a lot of the kind of social injustice that's happening, and then especially around coronavirus, there's a lot of opportunity to do some good, to make financial contributions to organizations who are helping those that are less fortunate during this challenging time. I think we're seeing, one good thing that comes from these, catastrophes is the general public coming together for, accomplish a common good or a common goal by, donating or benefit sponsors and things like that, which are totally great. However, we need to be very cautious when it comes to the donations that we're making. Don't let names that sound like well-known charities confuse you or trick you into donating. A lot of folks are being contacted by phone to donate. Do not agree to donate money without further researching said organization. Always make sure that you're donating to the legitimate organization and never donate, giving your credit card over the phone. If you're making a donation, try to make it by check or maybe even cash as well too. You could be giving your credit card information, over the phone that someone's going to have a hold of now. And next thing you know, again, they've taken advantage of you and your funds are being drained. Don't be pressured to make a donation, over the phone. Be sure to ask how much of your donation will go directly to the program that you want to help. They could be a legit charity. However, they could be just taking money and using it for overhead purchases. So just make sure, again, that you are researching the organization thoroughly. Visit their website. If they don't have a website, that's something to be alarmed about. See if there are any reviews on the charity, if the charity's been in the news recently. Is it good press? Is it bad press? Again, do all of this research. You've worked incredibly hard for your money and your finances. And the last thing you want to do is without any caution, just be tossing that money away. So again, verify the charity's website. Many of us are incredibly eager to help those that are less fortunate, as I mentioned. And many scammers know that. Again, they're prying on that sense of vulnerability. So just remember to do your own research before donating. Practice more caution, and again, make sure that the money that you're donating to a specific organization is going to that specific cause. Be careful when giving out your personal information, especially during a time like this. Don't give out your personal information, such as your credit card number. I've kind of alluded to that on some of these previous slides, especially that last topic of donating. Be cautious of giving out your social security number or bank account information to a caller, especially if it's from an unsolicited call, text, or email. Scammers send fake text messages to trick you into giving them your personal information. These include asking for your password, account number, social security number. If they get that information, they can gain access to your email, your bank, or other accounts, or they could sell your information to other scammers as well too. Scammers will also send fake messages that will say they have some information about your account or a transaction that has been done to your account. Some messages might say that you have won a prize or a gift. These messages might ask you to give some personal information, like how much money you make, how much you owe, information about your bank account, your credit card, your social security number to claim the gift or the prize. Again, these are all scams to pry information out of you. I'm frequently getting a call about my vehicle's warranty. It's a big scam. I'm getting calls about my social security number being compromised. These are scams that I'm seeing every single day. I'm not immune to it. I think we all have our own, calls that we're getting that, again, are asking us to give any type of personal information, or, there's been a hack to your credit card. We need you to confirm your account number in order to prevent, your identity from being stolen. Chances are these are all fake. If you have any concerns about your vehicle, if you have any concerns about your bank accounts, your credit card, contact your financial institution or contact, the dealership. But again, do not trust the person on the other side of the phone, that they are real and that they are legitimate. They're really just seeking to get any and all of your personal information. Be aware of coronavirus stock scams. It's very popular right now. A lot of folks are getting calls or emails from strangers who are pretending to be, Wall Street investors, and they want you to invest in a hot new coronavirus stock, be it a pharmaceutical company that's developing a vaccine or any other type of stock as it relates to coronavirus. It's always best to just avoid these types of conversations, even outside of the coronavirus pandemic. A lot of these folks are just trying to seek an investment to get a hold of your money. And they're using now these COVID-19 angles, saying, this is one that's this pharmaceutical company is about to release a cure for the virus, which isn't true. Don't fall for these schemes. They rarely end well. Know that there are plenty of legitimate companies out there that are addressing the coronavirus, and you don't need to take a risky bet on a not legitimate company. When it comes to anything kind of investment related, contact your financial advisor or speak to your local financial institution about investing. The best bet is to have a financial advisor that can help you invest in these legitimate companies. They're experts in this realm. You and I, for the most part, probably are not. That's why we need to trust the experts with the investments that they're doing. I trust my financial advisor to invest if there's a pharmaceutical company that's going to find a cure. I don't trust what I read or see or online. I don't trust that as being the truth, so I'm not going to do that on my own. And I suggest that everybody else kind of heed that same advice. So if you're an SDCCU member, you have an opportunity to utilize a financial advisor at your fingertips. If you have an established financial advisor, speak with them about any type of investment options. Try not to go at it alone, because a lot of times we then begin to get taken advantage of. Avoid clicking on any unfamiliar links. Again, this kind of goes back to the emails that we see or the stuff that we see online. A lot of times, you get some phishing emails, or, you'll get an advertisement on your sidebar that's appealing and you want to click on that. It's best that you avoid clicking on any of those links. Common times you'll get an email and it's a phishing email asking you to download this attachment or, click on this link to confirm. Be very cautious of that. You don't know what type of malware is getting on your computer. You don't know what type of viruses you could potentially be downloading by clicking these random links. The best way to determine if it's an unfamiliar or unsafe link, take a look at the sender's email address. What does it look like? Is the name misspelled? Does it not look like a legitimate email address? If you were to email me, it's vdelgado@sdccu.com. Again, a legit email address. If someone's pretending to be, an employee from a specific company, you need to make sure you just check their email address and make sure that it aligns with the company's, the company's website, and make sure that it looks uniform. Anything that looks unfamiliar, chances are it's fake and they're just trying to scam you. So try not to click on any of those links. Use your mouse to hover over closely and expect the email address or link before clicking on it. I mentioned it, but try not to download files from any unfamiliar people. If you've constantly had, email communications with people, chances are you can trust what they're sending you. But for the most part, if it's an unfamiliar person sending you something, avoid clicking on any attachments, avoid clicking on any links, avoid downloading anything. Try to get somebody else's opinion. Maybe ask a friend or ask a coworker for them to kind of review the email and what content is in there. Again, you just want to make sure that you're not downloading anything to your computer. It could be a specific type of software that a scammer is using, and then they have access to everything that's on your computer, from account numbers to personal information, and that's not a good situation to be in. What happens if you fall victim to a scam? What happens if some of the ones that I previously mentioned you accidentally did? And it happens to folks all the time. Really being proactive and protecting your personal information is the best approach to staying safe from scammers. If, unfortunately, you have fall victim, you can report suspected fraudulent emails or calls or texts to the Federal Bureau of Investigation, Internet Crime Complaint Center. Again, that was a mouthful, by going to www.I as in igloo, C as in cat, and the number 3, IC3.gov. The FBI Internet Crime Complaint Center accepts online crime complaints from either the actual victim or from a third-party complaint. The best process is really to make sure that you obviously, if you're the victim, you have your name and your personal information when reporting this. But if you're not a victim and you just want to report it, make sure you take down all identifying information, email address or subject name or phone number or attachment that it asked you to click on, any type of email headers that may be able to tie to that specific sender or person, or any other relevant information you believe is necessary to support your claim. Kind of in closing, as I mentioned, during difficult times like this, scammers are really trying to pry on those that are vulnerable during difficult times. And it's really about you being proactive and making sure that you are doing everything you can to protect yourself and protect your finances. And so just make sure that you're being careful with phone calls, with emails, with text messages, doing the best you can at protecting yourself. For more assistance, don't hesitate to visit Balance. Balance is a financial education and counseling service. We partner with Balance, SDCCU does, offering services like money management counseling, debt repayment options, credit report review, and much more. So feel free to call toll-free at 888-456-2227 or visit balancepro.org. Thank you for joining this talk today. And let's all make sure we're practicing being safe, not only with our personal physical being, but with our finances and our personal information as well, too. Thank you.
Thank you for joining us. The last 4 days have been such a blast. Our staff, sponsors, and expert instructors have all worked very hard to make every technology talk interesting and meaningful to you. Please look for a survey link and let us know how we did. And while our event is coming to an end, technology learning will continue. We have assembled a virtual team of technology volunteers who will be available to help you with individual sessions. Look for a sign-up in your email. Finally, technology is not the only subject San Diego Oasis offers. Lifelong learning and healthy living is our mission. Every day we're doing something for our mind, our body, and our community. Join us from the comfort of your home for philosophy, art, dancing, and meditation. Cooking, humor, poetry, language and history learning. Fun never stops, and there's always something for everyone. Go to sandiegoOasis.org, and I will see you in class very soon.